proceed to the top. Ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm with them in the move, but the rhythm when I come down crucial. And me ride palm with them and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal skinny. We are the general. We sit about the rhythm in the open, the mic incredible. I'm me right palm with them in the move, but the rhythm I sit down steady. Every ragamuffin you do, I feel rock and follow me. You know you love her for your life. Hey. Jump up on the rhythm, make we ride it. We chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we chop a mic, they call we give it a general.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Joshua Casper back at you with Plugin Boutique, and it's time for another one of my favorite things to do, and it's a dev stream. And today I'm really excited because I'm going to be joined by Caspar Bock from Baby Audio. Caspar, how are you doing? I can't complain. Where are you joining us from today? Yeah, so it's absolutely fine. If there's an issue, people will be in the chat to let us know. But I mean, you look fine on my computer screen. I can hear you good. So let's just jump right into this thing. Tell me a little bit about your background, and maybe first tell me what your title is at Baby Audio, just to get people a feeling for who we're talking to, and then tell me where you started to end up creating Baby Audio in your first plugin. Hold on. Yeah, we can't hear Caspar. Yeah, we're not hearing your audio. You can hear me, right, guys? Caspar, are you using a sound card over there? I can hear you, but no audio. This is a shame. Joel, are you getting any readings in OBS? Were you earlier while we were doing a sound check? Okay. Oh, wait.
Let me know if I need to do anything, but if I'm coming through here.
Yeah. Can you hear Caspar now, guys? In the chat, let me know, please. Caspar, say some stuff. Tell me a joke.
Joke? Well, let me think. Yeah. Is it through now? I mean, do you hear me?
Can we hear Caspar? Say yes, we can hear Caspar in the chat. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
We have yes?
Yes, we're getting a bunch of yeses. Audio, yes. Got him, yes. Oh, thank you. So let's do it again. Caspar, I told you we wouldn't have any difficulties, but it's a stream and we Just always have them. Joel, go ahead and mute yourself. Make sure not to mute Caspar. Mute yourself. And Caspar, tell us about you, what you do at Baby Audio, and where you started.
Yeah, so I founded the company back in 2019. So we haven't been around for that long, but we've been very busy. We've released 7 plugins. And I have a business partner as well that I founded the company with, a lead developer called Joachim. And so we had like a small team to begin with, and it's grown a little bit since. I think by now we're around 8 people if you take freelancers into the equation as well. Yeah, and in terms of my background, I made music all my life, and I was just like a geek with gear, and both hardware gear and with software. At the same time, my professional background was in advertising, creating digital products for brands. I worked in New York at the time for an agency. And I had this idea that what if I could marry this professional background of creating digital products and this whole passion I had for music into a company. And then Baby Audio kind of came out of that. So the idea for Baby Audio came out of that. And yeah, that was a couple of years ago. So it's really gone very fast for us.
Yeah, I mean, 8 people already. You got 7 plugins out.
Yeah.
A wonderful collection of plugins, I would say. The community from Plugin Boutique really, really enjoys them. Every time there's a new one out, there's a lot of excitement on the videos that I make about them. I try to do one for each one. You started off with iHeart NY, correct? And I think you and I actually linked up well before you were even part of Plugin Boutique's community, correct?
My first sale came from your video. Because I remember we hadn't launched the company yet. So we had this plugin ready, iHeart New York, and I was in touch with a few people because I knew your work, obviously, through Plugin Boutique. And I remember you did a video for it, and we were talking, are you going to deliver it to us, or are you going to put it on your own channel? And I said, just put it on your own channel because we're not ready yet. And then it went on your YouTube channel, and our site had not really launched, but it was like a soft launch. And I woke up one morning, the next morning after you posted your video, and we had 2 sales. So actually our first ever sales came, I think, from that video, because otherwise people wouldn't have known about it. So yeah, history goes back.
Well, that's awesome. I feel proud to be a part of the beginning of your meteoric success.
Yeah.
Tell me, let's dive in. Actually, you know what? Before we dive in to talk a little bit about iHeart NY, I was checking out your site earlier today, and I see that you've got some pretty big mix engineers as people in your plugins, man. Like, what's it like to find out Richie Beretta is deep into your plugins? And also, did you go film with him, the video you have on your homepage there?
Well, that one I didn't go to because COVID was happening right at that time and it was peaking. So that was just him and the guy who was shooting the video. Yeah, but no, it's amazing. With Richie specifically, he's also been almost a friend of the house since the beginning. I was living in New York at the time when we founded the company, and he's obviously from New York, and I had gone to some events where he was, and so he was one of the few people I knew from the industry. I didn't know a lot of like big name producers, but he was one of the few people I knew, and actually, to his credit, a lot of the people that are now using our plugins also came through his introduction. So he was one of the early people I hit up, and he was really into what we did with iHeart New York, and later on with Super VHS, and yeah, so it kind of developed as a friendship like that, and he offered to do this video, and yeah, he's part of the game for sure.
I mean, what's that like? I think I would almost start making plugins to get that kind of from someone who's producing some of the biggest names in the industry. And when they're, I mean, that's almost worth more to me than the money in the end. Like, just being like, getting the respect of people who are doing it. I mean, he produces some of my favorite creators out there, Major Lazer, Diplo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fantastic. So congratulations on that. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's special. It's also fun because obviously, like, when I make music myself, I still do, not as much as I used to. Like, I always had this dream, especially when I was younger, like if my tracks would make it out there and be heard by a lot of people. And obviously that never happened on a major scale. And I transitioned into doing more of this digital stuff that eventually, you know, ended up with the plugin company. And now, you know, by way of the plugin company, the stuff we're doing is actually being used on all these tracks. And yeah, that feels very good. But also like very humbling because, you know, people usually use our plugins in ways that we never intended for them to be used in, or like, it's not like we can take any credit for how they use them, but we're very humbled and happy, of course, by the fact that they're used by all these people. It feels pretty amazing, yeah.
Awesome.
Sure.
So let's segue then into iHeart NY. You've said a couple times you founded the company in New York. It kind of makes sense to make your first plugin be New York compression. Tell us about the journey from kind of the beginning to the end. You've kind of made a streamlined plugin, I would say. It's you know, there's only what, 3 different tweakable parameters, but with those 3 parameters, you can achieve quite a bunch. Tell us about, for people who might not know what iHeart NY is, and a little bit about why it makes it special, especially the spank control there.
Yeah. Well, so the story was, I was living in this like 1-bedroom apartment, and we didn't have a lot of space. I was living with my wife, and I used our bedroom as a studio for hardware gear. And I had this DBX 163X half rack compressor, which is a compressor with just 1 slider. And it doesn't sound especially good in a hi-fi sense, but it just really spanks the audio. And because we were living in this small apartment and I kind of wanted to transition more into working with software instead of hardware, I was looking for that kind of gratification that the DBX compressor had in a software plugin, and I couldn't find it. You know, there was a lot of software compressors out there, but none of them felt like they were that gratifying or simple. And you know, sometimes when you're in the creative workflow, you don't want to have a million options. You just want to add a slider and know it does what your track needs. And yeah, so the idea for iHeart New York was to kind of have that very like extreme compression sound in a plugin that only had 1 slider, which is the spank knob that defines how much compression you're giving it. And then, you know, as we brainstormed on the plugin and turned it into our own thing, we thought, well, there's also this whole style of compression called meteoric compression, which is parallel compression. And maybe instead of just making it only an insert compressor, we can make it also a parallel compressor. And you can actually use it in both ways. So there's a solo knob where it works as an insert compressor. And then there's, if you disable solo, you have 2 tracks running through the plugin, and you basically have your normal compressor and your parallel. Sorry, you have your parallel track, which is compressed, and your normal ride track as well. So that's kind of how it came about, and that was our first release.
That's wonderful. Go into any more specifics about exactly what the spank knob does, because it seems like it does more than, you know, it seems like it's doing a bunch in terms of what it's doing to the sound rather than just a straight compression. Is it doing anything else, or is it a specific ratio, or how do you handle that behind the scenes?
Yeah, so behind the scenes, it's a pretty fully fledged compressor with some static settings that are just set to taste and kind of based on this DBX unit I have, but also kind of its own thing, because we didn't want it to be straight up emulation. Then there's also an adaptive element in the sense of there's like a sidechain filter that basically listens to the low end and ensures that enough low end still makes it through so it doesn't squash the low end too much. Then there's the smiley EQ curve, which was also part of the New York compression trick. You know, you'd compress your parallel track really hard, and then you'd apply the smiley EQ curve to it to really make it come out in the mix. So there's a little bit of EQ and then some like non-linear things going on as well, just trying to make it feel a little more analog and a little less digital. So it's a mix of things. It's almost like sound design in a way. I think that was one of our founding principles, that a lot of plugins have a billion parameters, right, and then they leave the sound design to you as a user. And we thought it's kind of interesting if we already do a little bit of the sound design behind the scenes. So our plugins will still have the same amount of parameters, but we're not exposing all of them. We're kind of setting them in a way where we know they sound good, and then the user only has like a few things. Obviously, over time, our plugins have also gotten more complex, but with iHeart New York, it was very much like this dogma. Can we make like the simplest thing ever. And that's how it came.
Right, the simplest thing ever that still sounds great every time. It spanks.
Yeah.
I believe we could say. Yeah. I believe we got to film a little video clip or run so people can hear iHeart NY in action. But before we do that, we're going to do a giveaway of iHeart NY. In fact, we're going to give away 2 of them because we had sort of a complicated beginning to the stream. So everybody, put in the chat right now where you're listening from, and we're going to pick 2 people at random to win a copy of iHeart NY. And in the meantime, my friend Joel is going to play that video clip for you.
What's good, everybody? It's CJ Beats. We're back at it again today. Today I'm going to show you guys how I use Baby Audio's iHeart New York parallel compressor to add more thump and more smack to my drums. Pow! Okay, so here's my DAW. I'm working in Logic Pro X. I have a project open that I'm currently working on. It's a trap beat. I'll let you hear some bars of it first so you can get an understanding where I'm going with it. And then we'll start utilizing the Baby Audio iHeart New York parallel compressor to add that thump and smack to the drums. So the drums already have a nice mix, but I just want them to stand out a little more. So therefore, I'm going to use the Baby Audio iHeart New York parallel compressor to achieve that. So there's a couple ways that you could use this plugin. The first way would be to use it as an insert on an individual drum track, like your 808, your kick, your snare, your clap, whatever it might be, since it hosts both the dry and the wet signal. Another option would be to use it on a aux or bus channel. Let's loop off a few bars here, and then we'll start adding the parallel signal and listen back. So I'm going to solo out just the drums and the parallel compression so you can hear the difference with and without. So let me turn this knob back down. And we'll start adding the parallel signal back. As you can tell, the drums are already expanding. They're getting louder and thumpier and smackier, if that's even a word. But you can hear the difference, and it really helps attenuate the transients of those drums and make them really nice and thumpy. Maybe we'll bring the output down and then bring our spank knob up to add that extra compression. Since I brought the output knob down a little bit, it lets me add more of that signal without going too crazy. Let's bring all the elements back to the beat and have a listen again. This is without the parallel compression. I just want to let you hear the difference one more time. This is with.
All right, so that was a quick taste of iHeart NY. People in the chat seem to really like it, Caspar. You'll be happy to know.
That's nice.
Pretty solid video, I have to say myself, as someone who makes videos regular.
Yeah.
That gentleman does a great job, and he did a great job on all 3 of the videos you sent. Just before we jump into the next plugin, what made you choose the 3 plugins you chose that we're going to be talking about today?
So I thought iHeart New York first. And, you know, that would lead to, as it did, a talk about how the company was founded and our founding principles or ideas for the company. Tape, which is, I think, going to be the next one, was the last plugin we did, or the most recent plugin we've done. So I thought that was also something that would be worth talking about. And Super VHS, which will be the last one. I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal them.
No, that's absolutely fine, Ben. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, that's just like, it's always been one of my favorite plugins, and also I think one of the favorite plugins of a lot of our users. And we had some good content on it as well. I thought that makes sense too, to share that one. A good video on it. Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue into the next plugin we're going to be talking about in depth. But before we do, actually, and I keep saying before we do, can you go through the list of other plugins that you have that we're not going to be talking about in detail today? Because I mean, there are some on there that that I really like. The Reverb plugin, I really like Smooth Operator. I think that's a fantastic plugin. Maybe just go through the list and maybe just the elevator pitch or the tagline even for each one of the other plugins.
Yeah. So I heard we're covering, Super VHS we're covering. The third one we did was called Comeback Kit. And that's like an analog sounding delay. So it's basically a delay plugin. And then just like with iHeart New York, where you have the spank knob, you have 14 knobs that control more than one parameter input to kind of add vibe to your wet signal. So it's like we had this idea of, you have a basic delay that's at the center of it, but then you have all these little shapers to just kind of shape your wet signal in a way that's gratifying. You can turn it into kind of a digital sounding delay, almost like 12-bit delays from the 80s. You can also go for a more analog vibe. It has all kinds of ways of customizing your delay, and everything is on the interface. There's no hidden submenus or anything like that. So that's Comeback Kit. We have Parallel Aggressor, which is basically the big brother of iHeart New York. So it hosts, instead of one parallel track, it hosts two parallel tracks. So there's a parallel compression element, which is based on iHeart New York, but expanded with some more, again, like sonic flavors. And then there's a parallel saturation element. And then in the middle of the interface, you have three sliders or three mix faders, one for your dry track, one for your parallel compression track, and one for your parallel saturation track. So that's really good for just kind of beefing up your sound and taking one sound source and making it sound fuller and more impactful. The next one is Spaced Out, which is essentially kind of a reverb plugin, but with benefits, you can say. So it's based on a reverb algorithm, but there's also the 16-step delay sequencer where you can tap in delays in the same way that you program an 808 or 909. So you have these step delays, just kind of add more movement and depth to the wet signal. And there's a lot of modulation options. And so Spaced Out is basically, our idea was, okay, so we had the Space Echo coming out in, 1969. I don't even remember when it came out, but that's been like one of the biggest pieces of gear of the 20th century. And we thought to ourselves, like, how will we make something like a Space Echo for the 21st century, where you just combine different things? So obviously the original Space Echo hardware unit has both delay and reverb, and I think one of them has some core as well. So anyway, this idea of mixing different things and just creating this really spacious and spaced out wet effects, that's Spaced Out, which I think is my favorite of our plugins. And then Smooth Operator is basically, it's like a spectral processor that combines resonance suppression and compression and equalization into this very simple effect where you basically just set your desired response curve across the frequency spectrum. And then what the plugin does is it goes in and analyzes on a very granular level how your signal is responding to your desired response curve. And if it detects any parts of your signal that are too extreme, like resonant peaks or whatever, it automatically goes in and eliminates those in real time. So the way you can use Smooth Operator is to just basically clean up your signal, reduce muddiness, reduce resonances, but also shape your signal. And you can almost use it like an EQ and compressor at the same time.
Right. So I mean, it looks like an EQ. I would just want to stress that it's not just an EQ. It's doing a lot more. And I think I've done a video. I think I did a video on it.
Yeah, you did.
And I think that's a really popular, of the plugins you've released, is a really popular one. I mean, a lot of people reference it actually when I'm talking to them. So another one, you're just hitting them out of the park, just every one of them. That's a baseball reference. Yeah. I don't know how big baseball is. Absolutely phenomenal. Let's move on. Let's move on to tape. And for everybody in the chat, by the way, to know if you won the giveaways, we do that at the end of the stream. So stick around for that. There will be some more giveaways coming up. And also, if you have any questions for Caspar, go ahead and put them in the chat. And towards the end of the stream, we're going to go ahead and answer those as well. Let's move on. We've got tape. This is obviously the most recent, by no means the last or the final.
No.
Can you tell me a bit about tape and a bit about what makes it special?
Yeah, so I mean, I can start even further back than that. I'll just back out a little bit because we have this hypothesis that there's almost like a third digital revolution happening in music tech. And there's this thing, like in the 80s, digital music tech kind of started happening with samplers and drum machines. And that was like the first digital revolution in music recording. Then in the early 2000s, you had DAWs and Pro Tools starting to establish themselves as an alternative to recording in a traditional tape-based studio. That was like second digital revolution. And I think with AI and some of the stuff that's happening with spectral stuff that we talked about with Smooth Operator, there's almost like a new frontier that seems to be just around the corner. And for us as a new company, that's something we're super interested in. And I think no one really knows just how far AI will change things. Some people say it's very hyped up. Some people say it's the future of music tech. I think personally, I'm somewhere in between. I don't think AI will take over and compose songs for everyone in the future. But I think there are things to it that will definitely ease the workflow. So for tape, our idea was basically to start researching and how can you use AI in plugins. And we started where we were able to start at the very, like the most simple place of all, which was to say, can we use like machine learning to identify the characteristics of hardware here, and then start from there. And down the line over the years, we hope to become specialists at this. But we're also humble about it. Like we need to start somewhere. And so for tape, we use this black box AI machine learning approach, where basically what you do is you have a hardware piece of equipment, a tape machine that we identified, and then you have a bunch of audio tracks that are dry, that are just like normal audio. And then you have the same tracks that are run through the tape machine. And then you basically develop the plugin by taking these dry, wet examples and feeding them into a machine learning algorithm and teaching the algorithm what characteristics make up the difference. And obviously the difference is that one was processed on the tape machine. And tape, our plugin, is the first result of that process. So it's an AI-based tape emulation that uses this black box approach to emulate a 1971 tape machine from the Netherlands. And yeah, we spent around a year just getting it all right and getting to a point where we thought it actually sounded really good. But I feel like we're still at the tip of the iceberg as a company in terms of how we can use this. But this felt like the right way to get into AI for us, and hopefully we'll take one step deeper next time and keep going deeper into this rabbit hole.
Okay, so that's very fascinating, and now I have a million questions.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so first of all, I mean, what I gathered, pretty much what you said, is that you give the algorithm a signal, and then you give it the wet signal, which would be the signal that's played through the tape machine, and that could be, maybe it loses a little bit of the high end, maybe the low end gets a bit beefier, and then it takes the difference and says, that's what the tape machine has done, and then it takes that information and what applies then after you run it through the plugin, right? How many test examples or use cases did you feed the algorithm to get your first release of tape?
Yeah, I mean, we did it over the course of a year. So if you add all that together, we're talking hours and hours. But actually, for the version that worked in the end, because a lot of this is in the calibration of how you teach it to teach itself, basically.
Of course, yeah.
So the final audio segment that was used to actually come up with the resulting algorithm, I think was not longer than 10 minutes or something, 10 minutes of audio. But it has to be very different audio, because you have to show the algorithm all these changes in volume and dynamics and all these things, so it knows. Because it's not like an impulse response, which is a static thing where you just have like, okay, so it colors the EQ curve like this, and that's it. There's so much more to it than that, because what you're basically teaching it, very dense music, it responds in a certain way. If it's very loud, if it saturates, it responds in a certain way. If it's lower, it responds in a certain way. So part of this was actually not necessarily coming up with 10,000 hours of audio, but rather coming up with the right 10 minutes of audio.
Right.
Out of a pool of 10,000 hours, you could say, right?
Right. That's what yeah, I knew you had to feed it a lot to get there.
Yeah, so it was almost finding out, okay, what is the perfect thing to teach it on? Because you also don't want it to overthink it, so to speak, right? You want it to come up with the right words. It's kind of a fascinating process. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so is that proprietary algorithm now?
Yeah.
Or is that
so we use some frameworks that were open source, and some of this is available, but obviously the real technique here, or where it becomes more like alchemy, is not so much being able to use this black box approach. I think a lot of people could teach themselves to do that. It's as much in how you calibrate, like what do you tell it to look for? How do you what audio do you feed through it? But also, how do you interact with the actual hardware to create the wet examples? So it's almost like being a chef or something. You know, like you need to have really good ingredients, but how you prepare it is as important as the ingredients are. And
yeah, it's like raising a child, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you got to tell the algorithm, yes, you're being good, and no, you're being bad, but then you need to make sure it can tell itself when it's being bad and good, so you don't have to be there all the time to raise itself. So I mean, it's really fascinating, and I'd like to know a lot more about it, but I think the results speak for themselves. It's a phenomenal plugin for people who haven't tried it. I think what we should do is go ahead and play this video that we have where people can actually hear it in action and be blown away as I am by the fact that it sounds great and the fact of what's behind it to make it sound great. And I also think it's really cool that now that you have the sort of fundamental framework, like you were saying, you can build on that, and you can take it and expand it and do all sorts of things. Other tape machines, perhaps, now that you have kind of the method of identifying what's different and why it's different and being able to replicate that digitally. I mean, I'm excited for the future now that you've built that. And it's a year's worth of work, but I mean, it paid off in the end, I think, in terms of what the plugin do. So let's give a couple copies away, 2 copies. Let us know in the chat, and you know what? Just type in tape the way they spell it at Baby Audio. That's TAIP. Get the AI. You see what they've done there? Type tape into the chat for your chance to win a copy. And Joel, if you want to go ahead and run that video for us, we could hear it in action.
Today we're going to take a closer look at Tape by Baby Audio. Let's dive right into it. Let's head over to Logic and get started. I'm currently running all my instrumentation to an auxiliary channel that I placed Tape on, and I've soloed that channel so that we can listen to the instrumentation only without the drums and really be able to hear what Tape does. So I'm going to reduce the noise here. I want a little bit of noise. Not too much though. Let's see what happens when I increase the wear here. It definitely gives it that, worn out feeling, almost like a vinyl effect. Let's start messing with the glue here. I like the body that it gives to the sound when I increase the glue. I'm going to come up to the drive section now and increase the drive to see what happens. There's that distortion that we were talking about earlier. Let's find a nice balance. Let's check out this input section here. I'm going to change it to hot. I'm running a lot of instrumentation through it. I'm going to keep it at normal here. All right, to top it off, let's do an A and B test here. I'm going to turn off tape, then we'll turn it back on midway. Here we go. Ooh. Comes alive. The automation. Oof, beautiful. Bring the mix back now using automation. Here we go. Hey.
All right, so that's a tape. We had a question, Caspar, in the chat. If you had some specific deals coming up for Black Friday on Plugin Boutique that you can share with us now. I know sometimes it's a little bit of a secret, but if there's something you want to share, by all means, let us know. If there's not, no stress about it, man.
There are deals. So tape won't be on offer because it's on intro offer already.
Okay.
And the way we usually do our intro offers is we see it almost like a club, where our user base can get our latest plugin for the intro offer until the next plugin is out. So tape will be on intro offer until our next one comes out. So that one's not going to be on Black Friday sale. The other ones will be. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be like crazy, ridiculous savings, but there'll be a little bit off on most of them.
So if people have been holding off, Black Friday is definitely the time to go ahead and grab some plugins. Also, chat, you don't need to spam it. You know what I'm saying, guys? Like, I mean, we see you. We see you.
I like the passion.
Yes, we appreciate it. We know that we know you want the plugin, but I mean, let's keep it to a few. He knows who he is. That's great. So let's keep moving. We're going to talk about Super VHS now. Why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to what that plugin is, and also how it's different from tape?
Oh yeah, that's actually a really good question, because we feared a little bit that people would be like, is that the same kind of thing or a different kind of thing? So let's touch that one first. So tape is just a strict tape emulation. Of course, on tape, there are some extras that kind of take it into its own territory. You can exaggerate things a little bit and stuff like that. But Super VHS is not a tape emulation, and it actually isn't a VHS tape emulation either. There's been this thing with Super VHS because we, I guess, gave it a bad name. People think it's a VHS emulation, but actually that wasn't the idea. So the idea originally for Super VHS was to call it The Strangest Thing, because at the time, Stranger Things, the TV show, was on all the time, and I got pretty paranoid about maybe the legal rights of calling it The Strangest Thing. But the idea was to create this 80s style plugin where, a little bit like iHeart New York had the spank knob, we would have 6 different multi-effect or effects controlled by one knob that all try to take your tracks back to this kind of 80s, a little bit lo-fi kind of worn out vibe. And we ditched the name The Strangest Thing, and we thought, so what's like a really good metaphor for this kind of 80s sound? And obviously, the 80s was all about recording MTV tracks on your Super VHS, not Super VHS, on your VHS deck. And then, like, I had this idea, like, if you discovered, like, I don't know, like an old track from the 80s and an old VHS nowadays, and you put it in your VHS machine, it would sound really worn out, and dirty, and all these things, because that's just the nature of that format. And we wanted this plugin to add that kind of coloration to people's tracks. So we decided to call it Super VHS, but it's actually more multi-effects to give the sound of the 80s in a worn out and lo-fi kind of way than a strict tape or VHS tape emulation.
Well, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head with the design there. It definitely has like it feels 80s when I look at the GUI on the plugin itself. So I have a question with that in mind and kind of your approach and what you were trying to go for with it. Would you suggest people try it on a bus or the master chain, I would assume it'd be better on those than an individual track. Can you kind of walk me through maybe some use cases for Super VHS inside of a project?
Yeah, I mean, you can totally use it on your master. Then you will get a very audible result, obviously, because it's going to affect the whole thing. And it does color very much, you know, like that's the thing with most of our plugins. We have this philosophy that you should be able to hear what you're doing. They're rarely surgical. I guess Smooth Operator is more of a surgical kind of plugin, or can be, but something like Super VHS is not a surgical plugin. That's a coloration tool. So yes, you can totally use it on your master bus if you want it to sound worn out, 80s, a little bit lo-fi, all these things. We tested it a lot on synthesizers when we made it, and that was how it was designed to be used as almost a multi-effects for synthesizers. It has this magic switch in the middle, which is a chorus that's loosely based on the Juno 60 chorus, which is this beautiful, lush synthesizer chorus from the Roland Juno series. So yeah, you can use it on your master, you can use it on your synthesizers. Some people use it on vocals to just get them to sound a little more lo-fi. It's kind of whatever you feel for.
That's the plugin with like the what do you call it? Like the light speed switch there in the middle, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you walk us through what that is and why it's so epic?
Yeah, so the epic 80s effect is the chorus effect, I think. Like if you listen to all the big 80s pop records or whatever came out of the 80s, that chorus sound seemed to be all over, whether it was on guitars or synths or whatever. And of course, there were different ways of doing it, but one of the most famous chorus effects is the one-button chorus from the Roland Juno synthesizer.
It had two in it, though, didn't it?
Yeah, the Juno 106 has two. I think the Juno 60, maybe I'm wrong, I think one of them only has one, but you're probably right. The Juno 106 has two of them.
No, they're two like single button chorus. I think one is like epic and one is like lightspeed, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Totally. And as a user, I just always loved the simplicity of that. Like, there are use cases where I want a chorus with 15 different knobs, so I can spend 30 hours setting up my personal chorus sound, and that's totally relevant in some use cases. But there are also use cases where it just feels really creative to hit a button and it does what you want it to do. And that restriction almost becomes a creative fuel for you because you don't have to think so much. You just kind of work, you're in the flow. So for Super VHS, we knew we wanted chorus effect in there. That's kind of the anchor of that sound. And wanted to do it like chorus, one button. We also have the magic switch, which is actually the plugin, which is that button in the middle of the Super VHS plugin, stripped out as its own plugin. It's called Magic Switch, downloadable free. And you just have the chorus sound and then it makes it up to decide how much you want to mix it.
Wonderful. Plugin Boutique in the chat. Can you give us a link to that free plugin? That'd be fantastic. I mean,
as well your side.
Yeah. So go ahead and link up that Plugin Boutique. What was it called again?
Magic Switch.
Magic Switch.
Yeah.
So we're gonna link to that in the chat here in a second. It's free. Check it out. If you like it, hook up Super VHS because it's got a lot more goodies in there. So yeah, let's go ahead and run the next video of Super VHS. And this time I want you in the chat for your chance to win a copy. We're going to give away 2 copies of Super VHS. Type in baby audio, but don't go crazy. Let's be responsible in the chat, but type in baby audio because we're absolutely pleased to have Caspar here and pleased to be talking about their product. So let's go ahead and run the video, Joel, for Super VHS, and we'll come right back. And again, before we wrap up, send your questions for Caspar because he's here. This is a great opportunity to ask him about your burning questions about baby audio, plugin manufacturing, plugin development, anything you want. Caspar's the guy that can answer those questions. So go ahead, Joel, play that video for us.
Hey everyone, it's CJ Beats. We're back at it again today. Today I'm going to show you guys a plugin by Baby Audio called Super VHS. If you're a fan of making your beats or songs sound a little bit more retro and giving it that lo-fi feel, this is the plugin for you. I have a beat right here that I just made. It's sort of a rod wave type instrumental, I would say. It's got a piano, some saxophones, and some hard-hitting drums. The idea I had for this one was routing the piano and the saxophone into an auxiliary channel, putting the Super VHS. Let's have a listen to a few bars of this beat, and then we'll go ahead and add the plugin and see what it sounds like. Now I've brought up the Super VHS by Baby Audio. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a bit of heat. Nice. It basically adds some saturation and distortion. Probably keep it around this area right here. Let's add some of that drift as well. And solo it out. There's like that subtle detuned feel. Let's find a balance that works. Ooh, that magic button. Crazy. Now that we've incorporated the heat, the magic, and the drift, let's see what happens if we add a bit of this wash. Find a balance. Maybe we could add a bit of the static noise. See what happens if we add this shape. This is sort of like that 8-bit sound. That's not really what I'm looking for in this particular beat, but I could definitely use that in other beats. Let's do a little bit of A and B testing here. What I'm going to do is turn off the Super VHS and let you hear it with the drums, the instruments. We'll let it run for a few bars and we're going to turn it back on for a test. Let's turn it back on. Oof.
All right, so that's a taste of Super VHS. I think we all agree, and a fantastic plugin that everybody needs to have in their plugin collection. Reasonably, I would say, of course. You guys don't come out with an unreasonable asking price for any of your plugins. And like we said, Black Friday is coming up. So I've seen some questions popping up in the chat. Someone is saying, will you be getting into MIDI in your products or strictly audio processing? And I think what they're trying to say is there an instrument coming down the line? Oh.
Actually, at the moment we're working on 2 instrument projects. One is a synthesizer, which is just like a regular soft synth. Not regular in the terms of the feature set and the way we're making it, but just in the sense that that's how it's powered. The other one is powered by samples, and it's like a playable thing where we sample different things. Yeah, I know that sounds a bit vague, but I will show
Caspar,
soon.
This is the first time. This is a Plugin Boutique exclusive, everybody. Because this is the first time anyone has given us any sort of information about future products. This is incredible.
No,
Even I don't get too specific, but I mean, this is exciting.
I'm happy to share anything. I think, we actually, a lot of what we've done has been a little bit like co-creation, in the sense we put something out and then people will, somehow it seems like people rally together to focus on specific things. With Spaced Out, it was the CPU usage. With Smooth Operator, there was these spectral harmonics. And then what we do is we listen to all that and we change it based on the feedback. Then as we're working on V2s, which we are for everything all the time, just in the background, we're also taking user feedback. And I don't know. I don't like. I think it's great to just share what we're doing, take in the feedback, and adapt to how people react to it.
Well, it's good. I mean, I always find that incredibly inspirational and just kind of heartwarming when the company is actually listening. We make some plugins in-house here, particularly Scalar, and like we listen to the community. We make it for the community, so it makes sense that they kind of, and they'll let you know if there's an issue like a CPU issue. They'll let you know. They're not shy to come out and let you know. And I mean, Reverb is just notoriously heavy on CPU just out of the gate. So, I mean, you listen, you do what you can, and that's all we can really ask for in the end.
Honestly, it's a big gift to be able to so much feedback. I feel like it's a little nerve-wracking because people will also tell you if they don't like it, and if there's a mistake somewhere, you can be sure someone on YouTube is going to find that mistake.
Oh yes.
A video to it and rally his supporters together to spread the news all over other videos and other forums. But I mean, in a way, if you embrace it, it's actually such a great opportunity to just better yourself free of charge. Like, we don't have to hire beta testers. Like, if we just listen to what people are saying, we get so much free feedback that we can use to make our products better.
100%. And also, it's, I mean, I get it on my videos. If people have an issue with a video, they're much more vocal. Just if you just know that, it's a small fraction compared to the people that are just like, baby audio all day, every day. Yeah. I mean, even the people here in the chat are love your plugin is very obvious. So I've got a bunch more questions here. Let's try to get through these if you don't mind. Someone asked if tape would give their MIDI guitar a less of a MIDI sound.
It's a good question, because I guess it gets its MIDI sound from the way the notes are triggered, which is what it is, regardless of what effects you put on. But I would say tape will make the sound feel, in our experience, more analog and warm, and it's probably more believable that it came from an analog source because of how it sounds, because of how it warms up the sound and shapes the transients. And I think also if you use tape to maybe process a little more than just subtly, like if you don't go subtle but actually add more color, what also happens is you get another dimension to disguise the fact comes from MIDI originally. So I would say yes to that question, but whether it will totally make it sound like a real guitar, I can't guarantee, but I think it's worth trying for sure.
Yeah, I mean, anything to, I understand. I think it will. I will say yes for you.
Oh,
it 100% will. Next question is tape processor heavy? Like, how's it doing with the CPU?
It's actually not so bad. So one of the things that's hard about making this type of emulation is how the quality of the audio data you use to train the algorithm on also defines how heavy the algorithm is in the end. And we settled for 48 kilohertz in terms of the sample rate. And that offered a CPU load, which is pretty much like our Super VHS plugin, which might be abstract to people who haven't used that plugin. But Super VHS is a plugin that we've never had a single complaint on. It's been out for 2 years. And tape is roughly at the same level. We haven't had any CPU complaints with tape. It's pretty lightweight, I'd say. Yeah.
Good to hear. Another question is, do you offer demos of your plugins?
Yes, we do. There's free trials of all plugins.
Are those fully functional and then just kind of expire after 15 days or whatever? Can you give us a little bit more information about that? If people want to try.
They're restricted by 5 seconds of silence every 60 seconds. So they will work forever with that limitation. But we're actually considering at the moment to change the whole trial scheme into something that's time-based instead. It was, to just be honest, it was easier for us to do it this way, to just have the 5 seconds of silence. That worked really well in the beginning. We were new, we were spitting out product. As we've grown more mature as a company and people are giving us feedback, we're realizing maybe they want a 14-day trial that's fully functional. That seems to be what a lot of people want. So it might be from the next plugin or maybe the plugin after that, that will change to that. But everything out there, it's 5 seconds of silence every 60 seconds. No other restrictions. You can buy it.
I think to be fair, that's if you're really just trying the plugin out to see if you like it. I mean, it's going to give you enough information to make your mind up, I would say. I don't.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and the thing with time-limited trials is then if you dig up a track, I don't know, 2 months later, then suddenly everything will be muted where you use the plugin because now the plugin trial expired. So in a way, there's pros and cons, right? I think in our case, it's worked pretty well with the current restrictions.
Well, if no one else has any more questions, if you do, put them in the chat right now. Is there anything else you want to let us know, Caspar, about the future, about the past, or just about anything in general? What's the weather like? Whatever you want to let us know. Now is your time.
Yeah, the weather's dark here to start with. Well, I mean, we're ramping up with everything. So we are trying to, we have at the moment, I'd say 4 or 5 active projects that we're working on.
Good.
Beginning that we did one plugin and then we worked on the next one and then we worked on the next one. And I think, yeah, like ever since 2 plugins ago, like Smooth Operator was something we had worked on in the background for a long time. We've turned into, another way of doing it, or we've transformed our process into another approach, which is to do multiple projects at once, which means we're kind of somewhat through or somewhat down the line with a lot of projects at the same time, but we're not close to being finished with anything at the moment. But we do have like a handful of things that we're really excited about, and we hope to keep the schedule of 2 to 3 plugins a year. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming out.
Well, I mean, just so people that are listening, that's a lot of plugins.
Yeah, it is.
That's a lot of plugins every year. So, I mean, I'm incredibly excited to see what you come up with. And of course, once you come out with the next one, the next 2 or even whatever you want to do, if you ever want to come back on and do another live stream to talk about it and talk about other things, whatever you want to do, you got my email, you got my number. Just give me a call and we will hook it up because I like it. The community seems to like it. So, I mean, the doors are open if you want to come back on and do another live stream. And hopefully next time your audio will be working out of the gate. Yeah. Because we're an audio company and we strive to have the audio working. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh wait, there was another question that I thought was worth asking here. There's a couple actually. Are you working on, perhaps, if you can share with us, it's always about the future plugins, a reverb-specific plugin?
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the things we're working on, so Spaced Out is kind of like a reverb plugin, just with some extras added to it. But that core reverb engine is our reverb engine, so to speak. It's like our proprietary reverb sound that we're still working on, improving. And our idea is at some point we want to release a dedicated reverb plugin. So yeah, that is actually in the pipeline. That's great news.
Someone's wondering if you can add the ducking feature when you're building it. They really like to duck the reverb internally inside of the plugin.
Yeah, that's already installed, and that will certainly stay in our reverb plugin as well. Yeah.
Perfect. I really enjoy that feature as well in any plugin. All effects plugins should have it, in my opinion. Time-based, anyway. So another question was, how do you handle authorization and why?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So I kind of have this, thinking that people that are going to pirate and download illegal software are going to do it anyway. Right. It is what it is, and people that are going to buy it are probably going to buy it anyway as well. So we don't have an elaborate scheme. We don't use iLock or anything like that. We have a simple license key that's used to activate. It goes online once. You don't have to be online every time you use our plugins. But the first time you activate it, when you go from the trial version to the full version, it goes online. You have to type in your license key. It verifies that the key exists, that it hasn't been used a million times before, and then you're good to go. So it's a pretty simple system, but it protects it well enough, and it works for us.
Awesome.
It works for the users, let's not forget that. I think as an iLog user, that's pretty hardcore sometimes. All the different things you have to go through to activate. I think that's part of this too. Like, you got to keep it simple so a user can literally just download it and get started.
That's a great approach, and I appreciate it. And I'm sure other people do too. Okay, so let me just rattle off the winners here. We've got some winners to announce. And if you are a winner, you want to contact support at Plugin Boutique and just tell us what you won. iHeart NY, we've got EVK, congratulations, and João Aranha Musical. You have also won a copy of iHeart NY. I saw this gentleman saying he's from Brazil. I just left Brazil. So congratulations. Also, Super VHS, we've got Edgar Barranco and In Motion Audio. Congratulations, you win a copy of Super VHS. And a copy of Tape goes to Petty Freethinker and DJ EasyB. Congratulations to you. You win a copy of Tape. Just to reiterate, if you've won, if I've called your name, go ahead and email support@pluginboutique.com. Let us know what you want, and we'll get you a copy as soon as possible. Thank you, Caspar, for providing those today. Those are coming from Baby Audio themselves, so everybody just say thank you to Caspar for not only joining us and enlightening us about the past, the present, and the future of Baby Audio, but for giving away the copy of all of those since. That's 6 winners, that's 6 VSTs, and everybody's happy in the end, I think.
Thanks for having me.
Cass, yeah, thanks. I'll just say personally, thank you very much for having. Thanks for hanging out with us while we sorted out the audio issue there in the beginning.
No problem.
And like I said already, the invitation is absolutely open. If you've got something new and exciting that you want to share with the community live on stream, hit me up and we'll do it again anytime.
Sounds great. I'd love to.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to put a list of the winners and what they've won and the email for the support in the description of the video or the first comment or something along those lines. So go ahead and hit us up. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. I'm Joshua Casper. This is Plugin Boutique. That's Caspar Bock from Baby Audio, and we'll see you in the next stream.
Thanks, guys.